When I found the stack of legal papers my daughter left on my desk, I finally understood the depths of her deception. It was all there in black and white, phrases like durable power of attorney and sole beneficiary, legal language intended to strip me of control over my own life. My hands shook not with fear, but with anger. They must have thought I'd go quietly, that I'd sign away my house, my bank accounts, my independence, without a fight. They were wrong. By the time I was finished, my ungrateful offspring would be left with nothing but the shame of what they tried to do. You won't believe what I did next. Before we dive deeper, don't forget to subscribe and drop a comment letting us know where you're tuning in from. Earlier that day, my daughter Rebecca had stopped by my house with a wide smile and a homemade peach cobbler, her husband Mark trailing behind carrying a folder of papers. I should have known something was off right then. Rebecca never baked unless she wanted something, and the last time Mark looked that cheerful was when he thought he'd sold me on investing in his failed real estate scheme. They settled at my kitchen table, all polite chit-chat about the weather and how I was feeling. Ever since my heart scare in the spring, they've been so concerned about my health and living situation, at least on the surface. I'd recovered well from the mild heart attack, but they kept treating me like I was one slip on the ice away from a nursing home. "Dad," Rebecca said gently after pouring me a cup of tea I hadn't asked for, "we wanted to talk to you about planning for the future. You know, just in case something happens." She patted my hand with that rehearsed empathy she uses with her clients at the dental office. I looked at the folder Mark had placed between the peach cobbler and my coffee mug. My stomach clenched. "What's all this?" I asked, already guessing more than I let on. Mark cleared his throat. "It's nothing urgent, sir. Just some standard estate planning documents. We thought it might be wise to get a few things in order, given your recent health issues." His attempt at sounding casual didn't fool me. Mark always laid on the respectful, "sir" routine when he was trying to sell me something. Sure enough, Rebecca flipped open the folder to reveal a neatly printed stack of forms. "Just so we can help you with finances and medical decisions if you ever can't manage on your own," she explained in a soothing voice. "It's called a durable power of attorney. And there's a will template too, to make sure everything is set for the grandchildren." She smiled that bright hygienist smile of hers. But I caught the faint tremor in her hand as she slid a pen toward me. I picked up the top document, feigning more interest in the fine print than I actually had. In truth, I was fighting a wave of disbelief and hurt. My own daughter was asking me to sign away power over my life. And framing it as help. "I don't know," I murmured, scanning lines of jargon. "This is a lot to take in. Maybe I should read it through first, or have my lawyer take a look." I saw a flash of panic in Rebecca's eyes before she quickly composed herself. "Of course, Dad. No pressure at all. We just want you to be safe and prepared." "Yeah," Mark chimed in, tapping a page as if to direct my attention. "We'd feel a lot better knowing the legal stuff is squared away. That way if, God forbid, something happens, we can step in and manage things easily. Pay bills, talk to doctors, all that boring paperwork stuff." He gave a practiced chuckle, as if this were all a mundane inconvenience and not a brazen attempt to pocket my authority and assets. I nodded slowly, turning page after page. My eyes glazed over on purpose, giving the impression I was overwhelmed, which wasn't entirely untrue. "I appreciate you both looking out for me," I said quietly. "It's a lot to consider. Why don't you leave these with me, and I'll review them tonight?" Rebecca's smile faltered just a touch. She wasn't expecting that. She likely figured I'd just sign wherever she stuck a yellow tab. Mark opened his mouth, perhaps to push back, but I gently closed the folder and tapped it with my fingers. "I'll give it serious thought," I added, looking my daughter in the eye. "I know you have my best interests at heart." I almost choked on that last line, but it did the trick. Rebecca exhaled and squeezed my hand. "Of course we do, Dad. There's no rush, but sooner is better. Maybe tomorrow morning we can all meet again and finalize everything with a notary. I can arrange one to come here, whatever's easiest for you. Tomorrow morning. They weren't wasting any time. I forced a smile. Sure, sweetheart. I'll let you know first thing tomorrow. As I walked them to the door, Rebecca hugged me a second longer than usual. Love you, Dad, she said softly. We just want you to be taken care of. I kissed her cheek. I know, Becky. I love you too. Mark clapped my shoulder. We're here for you, sir. Always. I nodded, watching as they made their way down my front steps and into the dusk. Rebecca glanced back with a hopeful smile that I returned out of habit. The moment their car pulled away, that smile fell. My heart was pounding, but not from exertion or illness, it was pure, hot anger. I locked the front door, picked up the abandoned folder of documents, and carried it to my study, hands trembling at the audacity of what had just transpired. The documents confirmed my worst suspicions. Page after page was filled with legal jargon that all boiled down to one simple truth: if I signed these, Rebecca and Mark would have control of everything. My bank accounts, my investment portfolio, my medical decisions, even the fate of my own home, every last bit of it would be theirs to direct as they pleased. I saw that the will form they'd so kindly drafted left my estate solely to my daughter, with not a mention of the charitable bequests I'd planned or the keepsakes I wanted my grandchildren to have one day, no fund for Olivia's education, no heirloom set aside for little Ben. It was a complete betrayal, wrapped in a bow and presented as love. I remembered an article my late wife, Judith, had clipped from the newspaper years ago about elder financial abuse. At the time, I'd scoffed, insisting our family would never fall prey to such ugliness. Judith had given me that look, the one that meant, don't be so sure. Now, standing alone in my study with those papers in my hands, I wished I could tell her she'd been right to worry. I set the forms down carefully on my desk and drew in a slow breath. Getting angry was easy, doing something about it would take more. And I intended to do plenty. First, I needed reinforcements, trusted professionals who could help ensure tomorrow's signing would not go according to Rebecca and Mark's plan. I picked up the phone and called Elaine Thompson, a local notary public who'd notarized documents for my construction business in the past. Elaine was an acquaintance known for her discretion and sharp eye. She answered on the second ring. Elaine, good evening. It's Frank Morris, I said, my voice steady. Sorry to call so late, but I need a favor. Are you available tomorrow morning around 10? I have some family documents I might need notarized, and I'd feel more comfortable with someone I trust. Elaine didn't skip a beat. Of course, Frank. I can do that. What kind of documents are we dealing with? I chose my words carefully. Power of attorney forms and an updated will. It might be a sensitive family matter. I'd appreciate your discretion. There was a pause, then a note of understanding in her reply. You know you can count on that. I'll bring my seal and log book. 10 a.m. at your house. Yes. Actually, if you could come a few minutes early, there may be some things to set up. I can be there at 9:45, she assured me. Perfect. Thank you, Elaine. After arranging for her visit, I dialed my second call, Kevin Matthews, vice president at the bank and a man who'd known me, and my finances, for over 20 years. Evening, Kevin, I greeted when he picked up. After a brief exchange of pleasantries, I got to the point. I've been reviewing my accounts and might need some guidance on an urgent matter. Any chance you could stop by tomorrow morning? Say around 10. Kevin is a perceptive guy. He heard the tightness in my voice. Sure, Frank. I can clear a couple hours. Everything all right? I've had an interesting development here. It would help to go over a few things in person. And maybe have a witness to some decisions I'll be making. Kevin paused only a second before replying, I understand. I'll bring along whatever ledgers or forms might be relevant. See you at 10 sharp. I thanked him, my gratitude genuine. With a notary and a banker as surprise witnesses, I felt more confident that Rebecca and Mark's scheme would crumble under a little sunlight. Finally, I called Rebecca. It was nearing 9 p.m., but I knew she'd be waiting restlessly for my answer. "Hi Dad," she answered, attempting casual cheerfulness. "How are you doing?" I let out a weary sigh. "I've been thinking, Becky. About what you and Mark said." "Anne." She tried to hide it, but I caught the anxious edge. "And you're right," I murmured. "I do need help. Maybe I've been too proud to admit it, but I read through everything and it all seems reasonable. I don't want to be a burden on you kids." "Oh, Dad." Her relief came through in waves. "You could never be a burden. We just want to make sure you're cared for." "I know, sweetheart. I'm sorry I was hesitant. This is all, it's hard for me. Admitting I might need someone to handle things." "I understand," she cooed. "The important thing is we have a plan. So, tomorrow morning?" "Yes. Let's do it." I actually took the liberty of asking an old colleague of mine, she's a notary, to come by at 10. I figured it might save you the trouble of finding one. Rebecca was silent for a half-second. "Oh, sure, that's fine. Whatever makes you comfortable." "She's very thorough," I added. "I've used her for years. And also, my banker friend Kevin is going to drop in. He thought it'd be wise to review my accounts at the same time, make sure everything is in order going forward." I could almost hear the calculation on the other end of the line. My daughter was sorting through this new wrinkle. But she remained upbeat. "That makes sense. The more, the merrier," she joked lightly, though I detected the strain behind it. "All right. We'll see you at 10 then." "Thank you, Rebecca. I know this is for the best." "It is, Dad," she assured me warmly. "You'll see. Get some rest, okay? We've got your back." We said our goodnights. As I clicked off the phone, I allowed myself a long exhale. I had set the stage. Now all I had to do was maintain my role, the trusting, slightly frail father who was ready to hand over the keys. At least, until the moment came to reveal that I'd rigged the whole game. That night, I barely slept. But it wasn't anxiety that kept me up, it was anticipation. I felt something almost like excitement thrumming beneath my ribs. I was about to teach my daughter a lesson, one I hoped she'd never forget. I woke at dawn on the day of the showdown, the winter sun just starting to filter pale light through my bedroom curtains. Outside, a silvery frost had settled over the lawn, and the frigid air that seeped through the window crack felt sharp enough to draw blood. There was a familiar steadiness in my chest, a feeling I remembered from my younger days, back when I'd stand on a construction site before the crew arrived, blueprint in hand, ready to set things right from the ground up. By 9:30, I had the dining room set neatly for our meeting. I placed a folder of treacherous documents at the center of the table alongside a couple of ballpoint pens and a pot of fresh coffee. Let them think I was eager to sign my life away. At 9:45 on the dot, Elaine's car pulled into my driveway. I greeted her at the door with a warm smile and led her inside quietly. "Make yourself at home," I murmured. "They'll be here soon." Elaine nodded, her notary bag in hand. "How would you like me to play this?" "Like a professional doing your job," I said. "Observe. Don't interfere unless you must. I just need an official witness." She gave a quick, understanding smile. "Understood." I was pouring coffee into a carafe when 9:58 rolled around and a dark blue SUV appeared out front. Through the window, I saw Rebecca step out in a smart navy pantsuit, and Mark in a blazer and tie. They dressed up, I realized, likely to lend an air of somber responsibility to this farce. Kevin's sedan was already parked across the street, He had arrived a few minutes earlier and I'd spoken with him in the study, explaining that he should remain a silent observer unless called upon. Now he emerged and walked over so that he reached my front door just as Rebecca and Mark came up the steps. "Morning, Frank," Kevin greeted brightly, as if dropping by for a casual visit. "And you must be Rebecca and Mark. I've heard so much about you both." He offered a handshake. My daughter's eyes widened in surprise, though she quickly masked it. "Oh. Yes, I'm Rebecca," she said, shaking his hand. "Nice to meet you." Mark followed with a polite hello, but I caught the flicker of confusion in his glance toward me. I stepped aside. "Come in, everyone. It's cold out there." They entered to the warm scent of coffee and applewood from the fireplace I'd lit in the adjacent living room. If not for the tension coursing under my skin, it might have been a pleasant family gathering. Elaine stood as we all filed into the dining room. I performed the introductions. "This is Elaine, the notary I mentioned. And this is Kevin from my bank." Rebecca mustered a pleasant expression. "Thank you both for coming. We really appreciate you making this easy for Dad." Always the polite hostess, my daughter. My stomach turned at the thought. After coats were hung and folks seated, Rebecca immediately opened the folder of documents, spreading them out. "Dad, we've got the papers here like we talked about. I thought it might be good to go through them one by one, just so you're comfortable." Her tone was sugary sweet, but I detected a tremor underneath. "Good." Mark chimed in with an encouraging smile. "We can start with the power of attorney form. That's the main one, giving us ability to handle things for you, only if needed, of course." I glanced at Elaine. She had her notary journal open and pen ready, but her eyes were fixed on the scene, attentive to every word. "All right," I said quietly. I picked up the POA document and pretended to skim it again. The truth was I'd memorized its contents last night. "Remind me, what exactly will this let you do, Rebecca?" My daughter swallowed and kept her smile. "It's just so we can take care of any financial transactions or medical decisions on your behalf if you're ever incapacitated. You know, if you're ill or can't act for yourself, we'd step in and make sure everything continues smoothly. And I trust you to make those decisions?" I asked, injecting a note of vulnerability into my voice. She reached over and squeezed my arm. "Of course, Dad. You know you can trust me." I held her gaze for a long moment, then nodded and shifted in my seat, as if still uneasy. "It's a big step." Giving up control, Mark leaned forward, eager to reassure. "Only if necessary. Think of it as a safety net. We hope you'll never need us to use it." He chuckled that same forced little laugh. "We're just preparing for worst-case scenarios." I looked across the table at Kevin, who was frowning slightly as he pretended to examine one of the pages. He knew exactly what was in them, of course, but his performance was convincing. Elaine cleared her throat softly. "Mr. Morris, before you sign, I'll need to ask, do you understand this document and are you signing of your own free will?" Notary protocol, right on cue. I saw Rebecca stiffen just a hair, perhaps worried that question might give me an opening to balk. "I appreciate that, Elaine," I said. "Actually, before I sign, I do have a couple of questions." "Sure, Dad, anything," Rebecca said, though her eyes darted to the clock on the wall. Were they in a hurry? Perhaps they had an appointment to file these forms somewhere immediately after. I held up the will document, the one naming her sole beneficiary. "This will, it leaves everything to you, Rebecca. Is that right?" My daughter blinked. "Well, yes. I mean, I'm your only child. And of course we'd ensure the kids are provided for. This is just a standard template." "Standard," I repeated, my voice cooling. I set it down and picked up the power of attorney again. "And this one gives you the right to handle all my finances. Pay my bills, manage my accounts, even sell my property if needed for my care. That would only happen if, she began, but I cut her off by continuing, pretty much the moment I can't say no, you can do whatever you think is best. Correct? Rebecca's smile quivered. If you were unable to act, yes, then. I would step in to manage things. Only to help, Dad. Only to help. I'd had enough. I leaned back in my chair and exhaled, letting the mask of frailty slip from my face. What a relief, I said, dripping sarcasm from each word, to know my own flesh and blood is so eager to help me. Mark's brow furrowed. Sir, what are you saying? I'm saying, I replied, calm but hard, that I heard you both loud and clear yesterday. I turned my eyes to Rebecca. Her face was draining of color. Did you really think I didn't catch the urgency? The panic when I didn't sign right away? You could barely hide your desperation. Dad, I held up a hand. No. It's my turn to talk. Elaine quietly capped her pen. Kevin closed the binder in front of him. The pretense of normalcy in that room evaporated, leaving only raw truth. You came here to take control of my life, I said evenly. You dressed it up as concern, as making sure I'm taken care of. But this, I tapped the POA form, is nothing but a license to steal everything I've worked for. Everything your mother and I built for our family. Rebecca's eyes glistened with tears. It's not like that. We weren't going to what? My voice sharpened. Weren't going to pay yourselves out of my accounts. Weren't going to sell my home from under me while I'm stuck in some nursing facility you pick out. She covered her mouth, shaking her head. No, Dad, that was only if you needed full-time care, I swear. For a moment, Mark said nothing, his eyes downcast. Then he found his voice, anger creeping in. This is being blown out of proportion. We have done nothing but try to help you. And now you're accusing us of, what, exactly? I turned my gaze on him, leveling years of paternal authority that no blazer or forced smile could withstand. I'm accusing you of exploiting an old man for his money. He started to protest, but I continued relentlessly. You thought you could slip these papers in front of me while I was still grateful you care about me. You figured I'd sign my rights away and you'd get your hands on my finances. Maybe not tomorrow, but soon enough. That's not true. Rebecca cried, tears spilling now. I never wanted your money, Dad. I was trying to make sure things would be easier if something happened to you. Really? I picked up the will, holding up the page with the sole beneficiary clause. So it's a coincidence you wrote yourself in for everything, with not even a token mention of my grandkids or anyone else. Because I know exactly what my original will says, and it's nothing like this. She looked at the table, unable to meet my eyes. I could see her carefully constructed excuses falling apart. Across from me, Kevin spoke up gently, addressing me but casting a stern glance at my daughter and son-in-law. Frank, from a financial perspective, you've managed your affairs responsibly for decades. There's no immediate reason you'd need to hand that over. Especially not when you're fully capable as you are now. He didn't say it outright, but his implication was clear. This power of attorney move was at best premature and at worst predatory. Elaine added softly, legally, I can't notarize any signature that isn't given freely and with full understanding. And from where I sit, Mr. Morris, I'm not confident those conditions are met here. Mark's temper flared. Nobody asked for your opinion, he snapped at her, then turned to me, voice tight. Look, we came here trying to do right by you. If you don't want to sign, fine. But don't stand there and accuse your daughter of something so vile as trying to steal from you. I raised an eyebrow. I didn't say a word about stealing. You're the one who used the word just now, Mark. He realized his slip and his jaw clenched. This is ridiculous. Becky, we should go. He's clearly made up his mind. Rebecca was openly crying, face in her hands. Dad, please, you've got it wrong. I pushed back my chair and stood, feeling decades of disappointment and sorrow weighing on my shoulders. Do I? You think I don't know my own child? I saw the look in your eyes yesterday when I didn't sign. I heard the anxiety in your voice, not because you were worried about my well-being, but because I wasn't doing what you expected. She rose too, reaching out toward me. I was worried about you living alone. About you falling or something and no one being able to help. If that were true, I interjected, we'd be talking about medical alert systems, or moving closer to you, or hiring a nurse. Not about signing the house I paid off and the accounts I built over to you. I took a deep, shuddering breath. Part of me couldn't believe I was having this conversation with my little girl, the same girl whose skin knees I'd bandaged, whose college tuition I'd scraped together, who I walked down the aisle. But here we were. I love you, Rebecca, I said, voice gentler now but firm. I love you too much to let you do this, to me, or to yourself. Because once you cross that line, there's no coming back from it. She let out a small sob. Daddy. I'm sorry. I closed my eyes at the word. It had been a long time since she'd called me Daddy. Meanwhile, Mark grabbed his coat, his face twisted with fury and embarrassment. This was clearly a mistake, he muttered. He took Rebecca by the arm. Come on, we're leaving. Elaine quietly slid the unsigned documents back into the folder and handed them to me. I accepted them with a nod of thanks. Rebecca resisted her husband's tug. Mark, maybe we should, enough, he hissed. If he doesn't want our help, fine. Let him handle everything alone and see how that goes. He practically yanked her toward the front door. I followed them into the foyer, my heart aching as I watched my daughter struggle between loyalty to her husband and shame before her father. I'll always handle things alone if the only alternative is being betrayed, I said, my voice low. Mark shook his head in disgust and pulled open the door. You did this, old man. Remember that. With that spat accusation, he stomped out to the car. Rebecca stood in the doorway, tears on her cheeks, looking back at me. I never meant to hurt you, she whispered. I believed that, oddly. I believed that in her own twisted way, she thought she was helping, or at least that she could justify it as helping. But the road to hell, as they say, is paved with good intentions. I know, I replied quietly. But you did. Her face crumpled. She nodded once, then turned and hurried after her husband. I closed the door and stood there for a moment, staring at the wood grain. My reflection in the hallway mirror caught my eye, a man in his early 60s, looking older at that moment, but with a resolve in his eyes that hadn't been there in a long time. Behind me, I heard Kevin and Elaine gathering their things. I composed myself and returned to the dining room. Elaine touched my arm. I'm sorry, Frank. You have nothing to be sorry for, I said, managing a small smile. Thank you for being here. Both of you. Kevin gave me a pat on the back. Glad to help. Not the outcome they were expecting, I reckon. Not at all, I sighed. We said our goodbyes, and I thanked them again. After I'd seen them out, I was alone in the quiet house. The confrontation was over. The danger had passed. Yet the victory felt hollow. I wandered into the living room and sank into my armchair. On the mantel above the fireplace, Judith's smiling portrait seemed to look back at me with equal measures of pride and sorrow. I handled it, honey, I whispered to her photo, my voice echoing softly in the stillness. A lump rose in my throat and I pressed my fist against my mouth until it subsided. I sat there in the silence, wondering where I had gone wrong. Had I spoiled my daughter without teaching her the value of honesty and gratitude? Had losing her mother so young left a void in her that I never knew how to fill? As the firelight flickered over Judith's portrait, I found no answers, only the ache of a parent's broken heart. Something had cracked in our family that day, something deeper than dollars and deeds. I could only hope, as I stared at my late wife's gentle smile, that it wasn't beyond repair. In the days that followed, I took steps to secure my future on my own terms. I met with my attorney to officially update my will and set up a living trust that would ensure my assets went exactly where I intended: college funds for the grandkids, donations to the Veterans Hospital, and a provision to let me age in place at home with hired care if needed. None of it would be in Rebecca or Mark's direct control. My lawyer, a shrewd woman named Caroline, looked at me sadly when I explained why I was making these changes. "I'm sorry," she said, almost as if she were my daughter apologizing. "Let's make sure you're protected." Protected. I had thought letting my only child into my financial life would protect me from loneliness and hardship. Instead, it almost destroyed the trust between us. For 3 days, I heard nothing from Rebecca. I half expected an angry call from Mark or even a legal notice, maybe an attempt to challenge my competence. Aside from a single text from Mark on the second day, a terse warning that I'd regret this, which I deleted without replying, there was only silence. It was on the 4th day that I heard a timid knock at my door just after sunset. I opened it to find my daughter standing on the porch alone, hands clasped tightly in front of her. Gone was the poised professional veneer. She looked like a little girl again, scared and remorseful. "Hi, Dad," she said quietly. My chest tightened. "Rebecca. Can I come in?" I stepped aside. "Of course." She walked in, peeling off her gloves and coat. I noticed she was wearing an old sweater I hadn't seen in years, the one Judith had knitted for her during college. It had a small tear at the cuff that Rebecca nervously picked at. We ended up in the living room, the same room that had witnessed our explosive confrontation. I remained standing by the fireplace, unsure if this was to be another fight or a reconciliation. Rebecca took a shaky breath. "I owe you the biggest apology of my life." I waited. Seeing her in such a state churned up a whirl of emotions: anger, hurt, love, and an overwhelming sadness. She continued when I didn't respond. "These past few days, I've been doing nothing but thinking about what we tried to do. And how wrong it was." "Go on," I said, my voice guarded. She looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. "We were wrong, Dad. I was wrong. I thought I was being practical, responsible even. Mark kept telling me it was the smart move, that you'd end up needing us to take over sooner or later, and if we waited too long it would just be harder. I let him convince me that we were helping you. But in my heart, I think I knew better. I was greedy and I was weak." The raw honesty in her words made my throat tighten. I turned slightly, stoking the fire to give myself a moment to compose my face. "And what does Mark think now?" Her voice faltered. "Mark is furious. He thinks I botched our chance, that I should have pushed you harder or handled it differently. We've been fighting about it non-stop. When I told him I wanted to come apologize to you, he said I was being stupid. That we had nothing to apologize for." She swallowed hard. "I told him if he couldn't see what we did wrong, then maybe I married the wrong man." I closed my eyes, the crackling logs the only sound for a moment. I both dreaded and welcomed what I was hearing. Dreaded that my daughter's marriage was fracturing, welcomed that she was finally seeing the truth of the situation. "So he's not here with you now," I said. "No," she whispered. "He went to stay with his brother for a few days. Or maybe longer. I don't know." I nodded, still facing the fire. "And you? Why are you here, Rebecca?" "Because I miss you, Dad," she said, voice breaking. "Because I'm sorry. And because I need to know if I've destroyed our relationship for good." At that, I turned to face her. In her eyes, I saw the little girl who used to run to me with a scraped knee, seeking comfort. Only now she was a grown woman, and the wounds were far deeper. "You hurt me more than I thought I could be hurt," I said, my own voice rough. "I won't pretend otherwise." She nodded rapidly, tears spilling again. "I know. I am so sorry." I crossed the room and gently pulled her into a hug. She collapsed against my chest like she used to as a child, sobbing quietly. For an instant, I could feel time roll back. She was once again the little girl who climbed into my lap after a bad dream, the teenager who cried on my shoulder when her first love broke her heart. In that moment, no matter what had passed between us, she was still my child and I was still her dad. I felt decades of tension release in my own body as I held my daughter. For a long moment, we stayed like that, the only sound the crackle of fire and her muffled cries. When she finally stepped back, I guided her to sit on the couch. I sat beside her. "I forgive you," I said softly. "But things can't go back to the way they were." "I understand," she said, wiping her eyes. "I don't expect that. I want my dad in my life. I don't want it to end like this." I managed a sad smile. "I'm still here. And you're still my daughter. But trust has to be rebuilt." She nodded. "I'll do anything. I'll prove myself to you however you need me to." I believed she meant it. "All right," I said. "Then here's what we'll do. I've made arrangements so that I will never be put in that vulnerable position again. My finances are secured, and if I ever do need help, it will be through neutral professionals, not family who might be tempted." She opened her mouth, perhaps to protest that she'd never be tempted again, but she caught herself and simply accepted it. "Okay. That means," I continued, "I won't be naming you power of attorney, or executor, or anything like that. I've taken that burden off you." She bowed her head. "I don't deserve those roles." "I understand." I put a hand on her shoulder. "But as my child, you have something far more important than legal authority. You have my love, if you want it. And you have the chance to spend time with me, as father and daughter, without money getting in the way." Fresh tears slipped down her cheeks, but this time they were tears of relief. "I want that. I want that so much." "Then we'll move forward," I said gently. "We won't forget, but we'll move forward. You'll have to be patient with me, though. Trust doesn't come easy after a betrayal." She squeezed my hand. "I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you, Dad. I swear." I patted her hand, then mustered a lighter tone. "One more thing. Yes. If you ever even think about pulling a stunt like this again," I fixed her with a stern look. She shook her head vehemently. "Never. Never again." "Good." I allowed a hint of a smile. "Now, enough of this heavy stuff. Have you eaten dinner?" I was about to reheat some stew. We moved to the kitchen, side by side. It felt almost normal, like old times, save for the delicate new understanding between us. As I ladled beef stew into bowls, Rebecca cleared her throat softly. "Dad, do you still want to see the kids?" I mean, I'd understand if you were upset with them too." I nearly dropped the ladle. "The grandkids? They have nothing to do with this, Rebecca. Of course I want to see them. They're my joy." She smiled for the first time that evening. "They miss you. Olivia keeps asking when Grandpa will come over to help her build a birdhouse like you promised." A warm ache filled my chest. "How about this weekend? We'll finally build that birdhouse in the workshop for Olivia, and maybe let little Ben help us paint it, if he promises not to get more paint on himself than on the birdhouse." "I'd like that," she said softly. "Anne. I can drop them off if you'd rather just have time with them." I gave her a pointed look. "You'll stay too. We'll all have lunch. This is still your family, as long as we remember what that means." Her eyes filled again, but this time with gratitude. "Thank you, Dad." Later that night, after I'd hugged my daughter goodbye and watched her drive off into the darkness, I stood on my porch and breathed in the cold winter air. The stars were brilliant pinpricks in the sky. My breath clouded white in the glow of the porch light. Inside, The house was warm and safe, no longer shadowed by secrets and schemes. I had faced betrayal and come out the other side with my life, and my legacy, intact. The revenge I took wasn't born of malice, but of love and self-respect, and it had set things right. As I turned to go back inside, I caught my reflection in the window glass, an aging man, yes, but not a powerless one. I was a father, a grandfather, and a man who would not be underestimated again. In that moment, I felt a deep, calm satisfaction. Justice, in its own way, had been served. My family had been shaken, but not broken. And I had reclaimed the respect I deserved.
Hello everyone, and thank you for watching. I truly hope you enjoyed listening to this story as much as I enjoyed creating it. If you did, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel to help support the creation of more stories like this. Have a great day or evening.